Maria Konnikova, Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes. Ever wondered what it takes to think like the great fictional detective, Sherlock Holmes? In Maria Konnikova's book A Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes, you'll discover the key elements to Holmesian thinking, which could help you make better decisions in life. The book delves into the two systems our brain uses for thinking and decision-making, the autopilot system Watson, and the deliberate, mindful system Holmes. It further guides you on how to hone your ability to wield this Sherlock-style mindfulness by practicing and optimally aligning your thinking process.
Mastering decision-making. Discover the two systems that control your decision-making process, and how to improve it for the better. Have you ever made a decision you regretted? Or wished you were better at decision-making altogether? The human brain comprises two systems that govern our thinking and decision-making. The first system is autopilot mode, a compulsive system that requires little conscious thought. It's the answer that comes to mind automatically, often based on intuition or emotion. Unfortunately, this system is responsible for quick and erroneous decisions, leading to regret. Let's call this system Watson, and it acts much like the brain's reflexive system. Our brain tends to pick the first answer that comes to mind because thinking requires energy, and our brains prefer saving that energy for more mentally taxing tasks. This system often leads to errors, like the classical riddle of a bat and ball that costs $1.10, where the majority of people tend to answer 10 cents instead of the correct answer of 5 cents. Good news. The brain features a second system, System Holmes, responsible for effortful thinking. Unlike Watson, System Holmes requires analytical thinking and is more deliberate and conscious when making choices. In other words, this system controls our intuition and emotional aspects, leading to better decisions. The difference between the two systems is that Watson, the autopilot system, is easy but often wrong, while System Holmes, the analytical system, is more complicated but often right. By learning about the two systems, you can improve your decision-making process, leading to better outcomes. System Holmes and mindfulness. The brain has two systems, System Watson and System Holmes. System Watson is the emotional autopilot, while System Holmes is rational and logical, representing what psychologists call mindfulness. To engage System Holmes, it requires a conscious mental effort that demands more energy. However, it is instrumental in making better decisions, exemplifying Holmes' thinking style. System Holmes enables logical thinking in general and is not only suited to crime solving. For instance, Holmes deduced Watson to be an army medic who recently returned from Afghanistan by combining his observations with logical reasoning. Override System Watson. To become a better thinker, we must override System Watson and activate System Holmes. This requires both practice and engagement. Practice and persistence can significantly develop our natural abilities, allowing us to succeed through intensive practice. Engagement and motivation are also vital for improving our thinking skills. We must truly want to think like Holmes and make a constant effort to improve. Recent research shows that engaged people learn better and faster. In one study, participants who learned to juggle had developed their brains in areas that dealt with the retention of visual and motion information. Therefore, becoming a better thinker is not about innate talent, but it's a matter of how much work we're willing to put in. The brain attic. Our brain is like an attic with two components, contents and structure. The contents are the experiences, knowledge and information stored in our brain, while the structure determines where and how they are stored. To engage our brain effectively, we must transform the contents and structure of our brain. The main attic is where we store important information, and to do so, we must be motivated and interested. Making information tangible and linking it to our existing knowledge can help us remember important details. Sherlock Holmes links current cases to previous ones, takes in all the details at crime scenes and reads everything about the murder in newspapers to remember crucial details. Overcoming the hindrances to rational decision-making. Even when we are careful with how we store and organize information in our minds, many factors can affect our decision-making process. Neuroscience research shows that humans rely on heuristics, which are rules of thumb that help us reach decisions quickly. However, heuristics such as the availability heuristic may limit the information we use for decision-making. Biases in our thinking, such as the halo effect, also influence our perceptions. Our decisions can also be affected by environmental factors, like the weather. Studies show that we tend to make riskier decisions on sunny days. It's essential to be aware of these hindrances to rational thinking as we make decisions in our lives. Steps to think like Holmes. When confronting a problem, it's important to pause and take in the bigger picture before attacking it. This helps in focusing on the goal you want to achieve and aligning the rest of the process with your overarching objectives. Holmes' way of examining the walking stick left at Baker Street by a health practitioner clearly demonstrates this preparation. On the other hand, Watson jumps right into the process without reflecting, giving rise to emotional stereotypes and biases. Thus, it's important to frame objectives in a way that'll help achieve them. When reflecting, be aware of yourself and the environment and ask yourself what you want to achieve. Problem solving is not about speed but about accuracy, so taking a moment to pause and think is essential preparation for the remainder of the process. Accurate observation. To observe accurately, we must cultivate an attentive mind by becoming passive observers. Due to our biases, accurate observation is not easy. Researchers call attentional blindness, the phenomenon where people erase parts of their environment by focusing on only one element. Using all senses and paying attention to what is not there can help get a more complete picture. Double-checking initial observations and considering potential errors is also crucial. Boosting creative imagination. The creative phase of problem-solving involves generating novel ideas. This can be achieved through imaginative thinking, mixing observations with existing knowledge, and exploring different connections. Distance yourself from the problem by engaging in unrelated activities, employing mental distancing techniques, or creating actual physical distance. Research has shown that distancing leads to increased creativity. Holmes' favorite distancing techniques include smoking a pipe, playing the violin, and attending musical concerts. Solving problems, the art of deduction. After observing and being creative, the next step in solving the problem is deduction. The aim is to consider all alternatives and decide which solution works best, even if it's unlikely. However, it's essential to keep System Watson at bay and avoid the influence of natural stories. By reflecting and resisting the urge to simplify, you can diminish their power. The book divulges an innovative model of problem solving, in which deduction plays a crucial part. The approach advocates making a pause after being overwhelmingly creative to enter the deduction stage. During this stage, you consider all alternatives available and figure out the best one to overcome the problem. However, it's essential to be open-minded, even about highly improbable solutions. Sherlock Holmes, the fictional detective, is a great case study. In most cases, he solves problems unconventionally, using odd, out-of-the-box methods. System Watson is one challenge to avoid during this phase. It's the tendency to pick the most plausible solution based on past experiences and background. Under the influence of System Watson, people often overlook evidence that runs counter to their preferred solutions or complicates the issue. This behavior is referred to as natural stories in psychology. To avoid the influence of natural stories, people must reflect and ask themselves those questions. Are they using all evidence, giving it all equal weight? By resisting the impulse to simplify, their intuitional and logical answer can be edited, which will decrease System Watson's power. Consequently, the solution that emerges is more objective and well-rounded, gradually solving the problem. The Holmesian method made easy. This book's summary offers practical advice on how to turn Holmes' problem-solving process into a habit. While the method may seem hard to remember at first, with practice, it becomes more natural and saves time. However, practicing is not without pitfalls. Overconfidence can undermine the process, but mistakes are an inevitable part of learning. To avoid getting lost in the process, it's crucial to remain reflective and seek feedback from others. Ultimately, the Holmesian method is not about an innate ability or genius but rather the insight into one's weaknesses and the commitment to learn from mistakes.
By consciously developing our thinking abilities and learning from Sherlock Holmes, we can drastically improve our decision-making skills. Maria Konnikova's A Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes teaches us to pause, observe, strategize, and evaluate our choices like the iconic detective. It is through persistent practice and dedication that we can transform our approaches to problem solving. By learning how to conquer our biases and avoid quick, intuitive judgments, we can unleash the full potential of System Holmes to see the world through a more rational and logical lens. Ultimately, adopting the Sherlock-style mindfulness will help you become a better thinker and make wiser decisions in various aspects of your life.